Hi everyone, my name is Barbara Beckmann, and today I'm going to be showing you part 2 of the Luminance colored pencil wedding portrait that I've completed. Now, I posted a video of the background. It's a blurry background, and that was posted a few days ago, so I'll put a link to that below. Here's the finished portrait that I've done, and I want to show you now how I created the couple. The couple was primarily done in Luminance pencils throughout, and a little bit of Gamsol for thinning. That's an odorless blender. But otherwise, that's the only two things I really used on them, and I was able to create that. So I just keep referring back to this reference picture often, like constantly. That's the key too. So you start out with a really good foundation, which is your sketch. Take your time sketching. The most important thing I can tell you is to make sure that your proportions are correctly. Do not rush this process at all. So I masked this out as I worked on the background, which again is in the first video that I posted about this portrait that I worked on. So once the masking was taken up, I started to work on her skin tones first. So I can't tell you exactly what pencils that I'm using. I use every pencil in there that's kind of at any indication of skin. So we're talking the flesh colored one. There's a lighter colored one, like a beige color. I used a reddish colored one and a dark brown one. So I use a lot of different pencils. What I suggest is coloring on the side on a scrap piece of paper so you can see what happens when you layer them on top of each other. And then also you can use the colorless blender on there to see what colors you're getting, and that would be closest to what your reference picture looks like, or what effect you're trying to achieve. So as you can see, I make small little tiny strokes, and they're all even. They're very, very even throughout. I do switch off, like if you've noticed, I use a skin colored, and now I'm using like a lighter colored. It's more like a cream. So I will put all the colors down on the entire section that I'm working on. And here it's going to be the neck, the face, and the arm, and the hand. So once I have that entire section blocked in, then I'll go ahead and I'll use the odorless thinner, which is the Gamsol. It's Gamsol. And I use that. It is my favorite. I just love it. It's just, it doesn't smell. It's something that you see mostly now, in a lot of art schools use it for their students. It's just an overall better product. I used to use like paint thinner, like turpentine, and I just find this is wonderful. So this is my go-to product for blending. So once I have the first foundation of color on with the pencils, I will darken any areas that I need here, like in the corner of the crevice of her elbow, where her dress meets her skin. And I will just put in the lights in the dark areas, and then I'll take some of the Gamsol and I'll go over that and blend it all together. So that's what should be coming up soon. So here I am with the Gamsol. It's just a little bit goes a long way. I just dip it into the brush here. I think this is a number 8 brush. This is an 8x10 portrait, so it's pretty small. But I just kind of push the color around, blending it together and mixing it, kind of like traditional painting would be. So I'm just applying very, very thin layers. There's going to be layer after layer after layer on this. This is not just a one layer job and I'm completed. There's going to be, 15 to 20 layers on here, depending. And you'll see as I go along how it changes, and the layering actually gives a deeper color to the area that you're working on, and also gives you a lot of that dimension and depth that you need to have in a portrait. Just take your time. That's the only thing. Like when I first started doing these, I just really rushed. I want to see the finished product so badly that I really did not take my time. And then I started to realize that at some point I wasn't enjoying the process. And what started me painting in the first place is that it was relaxing, or like an escapism. It took me away. It just, I was always good at sketching and drawing and being creative. But at some point when I started to make that transition to where I thought maybe I would sell my work, because people were really commenting about them and asking me to do portraits for them. When I was making that transition from just being like an artist for myself and painting, learning, I guess, mostly, playing. When I made that transition, I was rushing to get things done because they are commissions. And I realized, one, I'm not enjoying this anymore. This is not fun. And the other thing is that I felt like I was making mistakes. Like I wasn't taking my time. I wanted the finished product right away. So The first thing I suggest if anybody is doing these, especially for commissions, is to discipline yourself and to give yourself the creative freedom and the time that it takes to actually make something that's going to capture what you're trying to achieve. So this is a lovely couple, first anniversary, and being a commission painting, it really has to look like the people. So take your time sketching, make sure all your proportions are right. That's the foundation of your drawing. If they're off in any way, if her arm is up too high or her waist is too thin or too thick, it's just not going to look right. So I always suggest taking, a long time to work on your sketch. Now this actual process from beginning to end took me about 15 to 20 hours. I really took my time, and I walked away when I needed to. I took a break. Sometimes your eyes start to play games with you. You start to get tired. So I walked away from this a lot, but I enjoy this so much. And colored pencil is a medium that's extremely slow. It's very painfully slow. It's not like, putting down oil or acrylic paint where you get almost instant gratification. Colored pencil is a lot of building up of layers, layer upon layer upon layer upon layer. And there's tooth in the paper, and it takes a lot of the pigment. So I'm not burnishing anything. And what I mean by that is I'm not pushing down hard. If I were to do that, what happens is you end up either damaging the tooth of the paper or putting so much pigment on there that it can't accept any other color. So layering and getting all those skin tone values from lights to dark and your contrast would be impossible. So light layering for me works best. So this was my first real layer here. I tried to do her skin color first. I knew that was something that was going to just start my whole painting in the right direction, or give me the foundation to go from there. So she's very light at this point. As you can see, there's not a lot going on. There's not a lot of depth, even though I see some creases in her arm and some definition in her shoulders, and her neck is a bit darker. The foundation is there, but it's very, very light, and it's just the start and suggestion of what's going to come. So I keep referring to my picture. It's constant back and forth throughout this whole thing. So just be patient. And like I said, if you get tired, just walk away. You don't have to do this all in one sitting. Being a commission artist, I do have to do things, and I have to make sure they're done on a timely basis because people hire me to do them on a timely basis. So I have learned over the years how to work long hours on these, but I do enjoy it so much that it's actually doesn't feel like work sometimes to me, and that's the key to it. So if you can do something that you love as your job, like I do, and you actually enjoy it, I will look up and realize like 4 hours have gone by. So I'm so blessed to be able to do this. So here I am just working on some of the dark areas. This is another layer that I've now added, and you can see it still looks quite sketchy at this point, or quite pencil-y. And that, it almost looks like she has hair on her arms. Anything that I go outside of the area, I use my Derwent eraser for. I always have that on hand. It's just better than trying to erase something myself. That's definitely a go-to to have in your toolbox, any artist toolbox that's using colored pencils or sketching. I love this particular one. I can put a link to that also below for you. So here's my other layer, and you can see it's starting to get some more definition at this point. And it's just switching off the colors, lights and darks, and referring to that reference picture constantly. I don't take my eyes off of it for too long. And it's really that I'm blocking in the shapes and shadows and suggestions of things. I'm not coloring her arm one particular color per se. When I first started, that's what I did. I really didn't know. There wasn't much instruction when I started. I've been doing, oh boy, I started out with Prismacolors, and that was back in the 80s actually. So I didn't have any real direction, and when I tried to do portraits, I kind of took the skin color tone and just made their whole face that color, or their whole arm, and it was flat, and I didn't know how to do things. So it just took a lot of patience and a lot of trial and error of learning how to do things. I like Prismacolors. I do use them for a lot of things, but the Luminance pencils are my go-to pencils now for my jobs, especially my commissioned work. I really love them. They blend really well. They can work well with other pencils too. You know, I occasionally will throw in my Prismacolors here and there for color that I don't have if I run out of the Luminance. But Luminance is definitely my go-to pencil. I also like Faber-Castell, the Polychromos. Those are great pencils as well. But I would say that the Caran D'Ache Luminance are by far my favorite. So again, here I'm just doing the dark areas of their lips and their nose where their face is touching. I'm working very slowly. I've slowed the video down a little bit so you can actually see what I'm doing. Um, Working on such small areas sometimes is hard, but you just like applying like the eyelashes and the eyebrows and stuff like that. I don't want to make such a big dark blob on the paper. So I'm just very, very, very careful. And I keep my pencils very sharp at all times. I have like an old-fashioned sharpener that I use that I twist in my fingers. I don't use the electric sharpeners because I feel like they eat your whole pencil up in like 5 seconds. Your pencil is gone. The Luminance pencils are very, very expensive, so I don't recommend, you know, putting them in an electric pencil sharpener. I'm sure people do, but just for me, I don't know if maybe I'm too cheap. I don't know. I just feel like, you know, I have this wonderful long pencil, and then if I put it in there, I feel like half an inch or an inch is gone within seconds. So I always use the handheld, old-fashioned, sharp, very sharp pencil sharpeners. So after my second layer is put on, here I am going around with the Gamsol again, and you can start to see it's starting to look more defined. You're starting to see some lights and some shadows there, but they're not so blocked in that they look like you know, a coloring book per se, or as if I had painted by numbers. That's probably a better way to describe it. So there is lights and darks, but that Gamsol is going to help you do that blend, that nice transition together to get that definition of the skin tone that you're looking for. I let it dry. I do go on to a different area here. I will go back over her arms again. I just wanted to start working on her hair. And I'm using one of the darkest blacks here and dark browns. I don't know the colors offhand. Like I said, I used a lot. This is a dark gray, I believe I'm using now. And I just, same process, it's very, very lightly, and you just go over it, and you keep adding your Gamsol to blend out, and it's a lot of light and dark contrast together, and it'll start to look like hair. I just take my time, play with it, you know, think back to your lights and your darks, and make sure you have your highlights there, make sure you blend everything together well, and just keep referring to that reference picture. That's the best thing I could give, or advice I could give anybody. And it will start to look, you know, like them. There are parts of, or times when I get into my paintings and I look at it and I think, oh, this is really bad. I'm really doing a terrible job. And that's when you just don't quit. That's when you keep going. One of the biggest mistakes I see people do is they just quit. And even I did that early on. It was, you know, frustrating to me. I would get so far working so many hours on it, and I didn't realize that I was probably just a quarter of the way through. So just learning to be patient, maybe putting things away, even if you have to put them away on a shelf for a month or two, you can always go back to things. And you'll have a new fresh look at it and a new eye to see it in a different light. So her hair is very, very dark, so I don't have to worry about individual hair, you know, strokes or lines. It was very, very dark. So the only thing I was thinking here was highlights. The highlights were hitting very top of her head, so I made that a little bit lighter. You can always add, you know, add things on top of this. That's what I love about the Luminance pencils. If it's dark, I can add a white on top of this or a lighter color on top of this, and you'll be able to see it. It's not like it's going to be so dark that I won't be able to add another layer on top of it. So I'm using those same gray pencil here because I have like some of her wispy hairs going around to the other side of her neck there. And I blend those in as well. So everything that I touch onto the paper, as far as the colored pencils, it's always blended out with the Gamsol. So I keep coming back and I start using the skin colors again on her. And now she's still unfinished, but I went on to work on him at this point. So I just kind of kept locking things in. I do bounce around quite a bit sometimes. It just depends on what I'm painting. Sometimes I will be, fixated on one part of it, and I'll stay there until something's done. Um, Definitely she's got a good foundation going to her. She's got some darks and some lights going, and I like how she looks overall, but she's still, her depth and her color value is still not quite there. But as I go along and I start to block in his jacket and different things about him, then I realized that how light she is. It wasn't until I put the dark tuxedo on him and some other things relating to him that I realized that she really needed to be darkened up quite a bit. So I do go back at times and work on her again. So it's the same process with him. I'm just looking for lights and darks. I'm not making any, bold lines. Like, I don't want him to be outlined. I just want him to be natural. So it would look like a photograph. Now it's not hyper realism. To do that would take me many, many hours and it would cost the client a lot of money. So to keep costs down for them and to be able to produce good quality work for people, I generally work in this manner. So you can tell it's a painting or a drawing, which is great, which is why people hire you in the first place. I'm not a camera, and I kind of like that it does look like a painting. So it doesn't take as long to do these. So again, I'm just keep referring back to my reference point. I'm looking now for like the dark shadows in his creases of his arm. And that's what I'd be blocking in here. And then once I have the dark creases in where I think they should go, I will go over it with even tone. See if you can see, it's just, I have an even pressure throughout. And I just block in his color. It goes in pretty quickly, and then I'll take the Gamsol and I will fade this out. And you can see the color will definitely change and get a lot darker when it's faded out with the odorless thinner. So there it is. I just hit that little section over there by her shoulder or her bouquet, and it's much darker once I add the Gamsol. So it's still not going to be at its darkest value as it is when it's completed. And that's because, I'm layering constantly. There's going to be a lot of layers here. I don't recall how many layers it took to actually get his tuxedo to be as dark as I needed to, but it took quite a few. I also added some purples and some blues into his tuxedo where the top of the shoulder line is. I didn't do that at this point, but I'll be doing that shortly. So it's black, but a lot of blacks. I put a lot of purples in and a lot of dark purple undertones. That's what I like for my shadows, and anything that's black, like a black animal, a black cat. There's a lot of color in those. It's not just necessarily pure black. So that's basically it. I went around and I just worked slowly, and I did the same process throughout. I just did a lot of layering. When I thought I was done, I still kept going, a lot of layering, a lot of layering. I didn't really burnish anything at this point, but the more layers you put on, the less layers it's going to accept. It's finally going to say, hey, I'm done. I've had enough of this. This was a great painting to do. I liked it because I liked the challenge of like the wedding dress and the veil, and how you could still see some of the grasses coming through her veil. And that's what I think I loved most about working on, was that part of the painting. So I already gave this to my client, and the feedback was very good. The couple loved it, so that's good. That makes me happy. It was a nice wedding gift to them on their first anniversary, which I hope they'll always remember. So that's a good thing. And I always like to hear, my feedback, whether it's good or bad, because that's how you learn. If you get constructive criticism, then okay, maybe I have to work on my shadows a little bit more, or maybe my drawing's not really as good as I could make it. And you'll find where your shortfalls are, and if you just concentrate and work on them, you're going to overall have a better painting in the end, and you're going to feel proud of your painting. Like, I'm proud of this painting. It took me a long time to learn how to do this, and it took me a lot of discipline to be able to sit down and do a lot of bad work and realize, wow, I have a lot to learn. So if you can get past all those little hurdles and, not be so hard on yourself as you're learning, then you'll eventually get to a point where you really you know, are confident and know what you're doing, and that will show in your work as well. So thank you so much for watching. I'm just going to put some music on for the rest of this video, because basically what I did was what I've explained already. I just did a lot of layering, and it's a lot of, you know, go slow and take your time, don't rush it, be patient, a lot of discipline, and eventually, in the end, it all kind of comes together. But I hope you enjoy the video, and I hope you got some information from me that might be helpful for you in anything that you're trying to do with your colored pencils. If you haven't tried Luminance, you know, they're just great. Like, try like a smaller pack. They are very expensive, so if you know, are serious about trying this, then that's what I would recommend. You can certainly work yourself up to, you know, getting a good quality pencil, but I find that if you don't have the good quality artist pencil to start with, then you're just going to struggle and you're never going to achieve what you want to achieve. So you have to start out with really good products in order to be able to get to the point where you want to be and to achieve what you're capable of. You know, same thing goes with paints. If you're using cheap quality paint, you might struggle to get something to work out, or to fade something together, or to shadow something correctly, and it will be a struggle and you won't want to do it anymore. So I do suggest these to anybody who wants to try. You know, get like the smallest pack they have. I don't know what it is on hands, but Jerry's Artorama has them. Dick Blick's, you can really get them a lot of different places. Just do a Google search and, you know, check prices, because they are pretty costly, and you can use coupons at a lot of places. So try these out if you haven't. Also try out the Gamsol. I'll put a link to that below as well, and I'll put a link to the paper that I used also. So please subscribe, and if you have any questions or comments, please leave a comment below. I would love to hear, you know, any comment that you would have for me, whether it's good or bad. That's how I'm going to learn. I would really appreciate that, and I'd also appreciate a thumbs up if you're happy and enjoyed the video and actually got something out of it. And give me a thumbs up and thumbs down if, you know, you think I need to really improve on these, because I'm not fairly new to the videos, but I'm changing things up a little bit, so I'm not really sure what direction I'm going in yet. So your comments and your feedback and your thumbs up and your thumbs down are really going to help me to determine where I go forward with my videos here on YouTube. So I thank you so much again, and I hope I see you back here soon. And check out the video that I did before this one of how I created that blurry background without using the colored pencils. I used acrylic paint to help me out along the way. And the finished product was wonderful. I'm so happy with it. And you really couldn't tell that I used acrylic paint and the pencils. It all looked like one actual painting. So take a look at that as well. I'll put a link below to that too, and I hope you enjoy that video as well. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope you guys have a great day.